The massive ship hung in space like a sleeping giant, its chrome surface reflecting the distant stars with an almost liquid smoothness. For 3 standard cycles, the vessel had remained motionless in the orbital shipyard above Kepler Station, defying every attempt to bring its systems online. Engineers from 12 different species had tried their expertise on the mysterious craft, yet it remained as unresponsive as a dead moon. Commander Zara Vesh of the Galactic Engineering Corps stood before the viewing portal, her forearms crossed in frustration as she studied the silent behemoth. The ship measured nearly 2 kilometers in length, its design unlike anything in the known databases. Smooth curves blended seamlessly with angular sections, creating a form that seemed both organic and mechanical. No seams were visible on its surface, as if the entire vessel had been grown rather than built. "Still nothing, Commander," reported tech specialist Crix, his insectoid features twitching with annoyance. The Zephyrian had spent the last week attempting to interface with the ship's systems through every conceivable method. "The hull responds to our scans, shows it's made of some unknown alloy, but there's no power signature, no electromagnetic activity, nothing." Zara's primary arms gestured toward the ship, while her secondary arms remained folded. "What about the entry ports we discovered yesterday?" "Sealed tight. The Carillion mining teams tried their plasma cutters, but the hull just absorbed the energy. It's like the ship is actively resisting our efforts." Crix's compound eyes reflected the frustration shared by the entire engineering team. The discovery of the vessel had been accidental. A routine mining operation in the Helix Nebula had uncovered what appeared to be an asteroid, but deeper scans revealed the artificial nature hidden beneath layers of cosmic dust and debris. The ship had been drifting in space for an unknown period, possibly centuries or even millennia. Dr. Elena Vasquez, the expedition's xenoarchaeologist, approached the viewing station. Her weathered face bore the excitement of someone who had just made a significant discovery. "Commander, I've been analyzing the hull markings we managed to photograph. The symbols don't match any known language in our databases, but there's something familiar about their structure." "Familiar how?" Zara asked, her secondary eyes focusing on the human scientist. "The mathematical relationships between the symbols suggest a base 12 counting system, which is unusual, but not unprecedented. However, the way they're arranged indicates a complex 3-dimensional language structure. It's almost as if the writers could perceive reality differently than most known species." Zara nodded thoughtfully. Humans had proven remarkably adept at solving puzzles that stumped other species, their unique cognitive patterns often finding solutions where others saw only dead ends. "Continue your analysis. What about the internal scans?" Chief Engineer Thorak, a massive Krillian whose rocky exterior made him appear like a walking boulder, rumbled his response. "Sensors can penetrate only a few meters before the readings become scrambled. What we can see suggests vast internal spaces, but the architecture is impossible to understand. Corridors that seem to fold back on themselves, chambers that appear larger on the inside than the outside." "Space folding technology?" Zara mused. That would explain the size discrepancies. But such technology was theoretical even for the precursor races. The precursors were a mystery that had haunted galactic civilization for thousands of years. Ancient ruins scattered across the galaxy told of a highly advanced race that had simply vanished, leaving behind only fragments of technology that modern science could barely comprehend. Most scientists believed they had transcended physical existence, while others theorized they had destroyed themselves in some cosmic catastrophe. "Commander," interrupted Lieutenant Yuki, the communications officer, "we're receiving a priority message from Fleet Command." Zara activated her personal communicator, and the stern face of Admiral Corrin appeared in holographic form. The Altarian's blue skin seemed darker than usual, suggesting stress or concern. "Commander Vesh, what's the status on the derelict vessel?" Still unresponsive, Admiral. My teams have exhausted conventional approaches. We may need to consider more extreme measures. Admiral Corrin's facial tentacles writhed slightly. That may not be possible. Our xenobiologists have detected something troubling. The ship appears to be emitting some form of subspace resonance that's affecting nearby space. What kind of effects? Zara asked, though she suspected she already knew the answer. Ships that approach within a certain radius begin experiencing system malfunctions. Navigation computers start producing impossible readings, crew members report strange dreams, and in some cases, complete system failures have occurred. We've had to establish a quarantine zone around your position. This was troubling news. Zara looked out at the silent vessel with new concern. How large is the affected area? Currently about 50,000 kilometers in radius, but it's growing. Whatever that ship is, it's actively influencing the space around it. We need answers, and we need them soon. Dr. Vasquez stepped closer to the communication array. Admiral, I believe I may have found something significant in the hull markings. The symbols appear to reference something called the consciousness bridge. If my translation is correct, the ship may require some form of mental interface to activate. Admiral Corrin's image flickered slightly as the subspace interference grew stronger. Mental interface. We've had telepathic species attempt contact with no success. Not telepathy, Admiral. The symbols suggest something more fundamental. A specific type of consciousness, a particular way of perceiving reality that serves as a key to the ship's systems. The communication began to break up as waves of interference washed over the station. Find out what it needs, Commander. The Galactic Council is growing concerned about the expanding anomaly. If we can't solve this puzzle soon, they may order the ship's destruction. The hologram faded as the communication link dissolved entirely. Zara stared out at the vessel, its surface now seeming to shimmer with an inner light that hadn't been there before. The ship was definitely responding to their presence, but in ways that defied understanding. Over the following days, teams worked frantically to decode more of the ship's mysteries. The symbols Dr. Vasquez had discovered led to more complex patterns that seemed to describe not just operational procedures, but philosophical concepts. The ship's builders had apparently seen consciousness itself as a form of technology. Tech specialist Crix made a breakthrough when he discovered that the ship's hull would respond to direct contact, but only under specific conditions. When crew members touched the surface while in certain emotional states, faint patterns would appear on the hull, like ripples on a pond. Fear produced chaotic, jagged lines. Curiosity created flowing curves. Anger generated sharp, angular marks. "It's reading us," Crix reported excitedly. "Somehow, the ship can sense the mental state of whoever touches it. But it's not just sensing, it's evaluating." Dr. Vasquez had been working around the clock to translate more symbols. "I think I understand what it's looking for. The markings describe something called the dreaming mind that bridges all realities. According to this text, the ship's consciousness was designed to merge with a being capable of perceiving multiple dimensions of existence simultaneously." Chief Engineer Thorak's gravelly voice interrupted their discussion. "Commander, we have a new development. The ship's internal structure is changing." They rushed to the sensor station where Thorak displayed the latest scans. The internal corridors were indeed shifting, creating new pathways while others disappeared entirely. The central chamber, which had been inaccessible before, now showed a clear route from the outer hull. "It's preparing for something," Zara observed. "The question is, what?" The answer came sooner than expected. As the engineering teams watched, sections of the hull began to iris open, revealing entry ports that hadn't existed before. The ship was inviting them inside, but the invitation felt more like a challenge than a welcome. "Form 3 teams," Zara commanded. "Full environmental suits and emergency beacons. If this ship can affect other vessels' systems, we don't know what it might do to organic beings." The first team to enter consisted of volunteers from different species, each chosen for their specific abilities. The Carillion team leader could perceive electromagnetic fields directly, the Zephyrian navigator had enhanced spatial awareness, and the human biologist possessed the pattern recognition skills her species was known for. As they crossed the threshold into the ship, their suit sensors immediately began registering anomalous readings. The corridors were indeed larger inside than outside, with walls that seemed to extend into impossible distances. Gravity remained consistent, but the team reported feeling disoriented, as if they were walking through a dream. "The walls are covered in more symbols," reported Dr. Sarah Chen, the human biologist. "They're not just decorative, they seem to be instructions or perhaps a form of programming." The team made their way toward the central chamber, following corridors that shifted and changed as they walked. Sometimes a passage would lead them up, only to somehow bring them to a lower level. Other times, they would walk in a straight line but end up approaching their destination from a completely different direction. "Commander?" Chen's voice came over the communication link with barely contained excitement. "You need to see this. The central chamber. It's incredible." The chamber was a vast, spherical space, its walls covered in intricate patterns that seemed to move and flow like living things. In the center of the room stood a single chair, if it could be called that. The device appeared to be made of the same material as the ship itself, but its surface rippled with internal light. "It's some kind of interface," Chen reported. "The symbols around it are much more complex than anything we've seen before. Dr. Vasquez, are you getting this transmission?" Back on the station, Dr. Vasquez was indeed receiving the video feed, and her face had gone pale. "Those symbols, they're not just instructions, they're a test. The ship is evaluating anyone who enters the chamber." As the exploration team studied the mysterious chair, the patterns on the chamber walls began to pulse with increasing intensity. The ship was responding to their presence, but something was still missing. Despite all their efforts, the vessel remained silent, waiting for the right key to unlock its secrets. The answer would come from an unexpected source, arriving on a small transport ship that had been delayed by technical difficulties. Among the passengers was someone whose unique perspective would finally give the cosmic cruiser what it had been waiting for all along. Captain Marcus Reed stepped off the transport ship with the weariness of someone who had traveled across 3 star systems in as many days. His assignment to Kepler Station had been sudden and unexplained, marked only as xenopsychological consultation, highest priority. The dark circles under his eyes and the slight tremor in his hands told the story of another sleepless night filled with the strange dreams that had been plaguing him for weeks. Commander Vesh greeted him at the docking bay, her 4 arms moving in the formal Carillion welcome gesture. "Captain Reed, thank you for coming so quickly. I understand this assignment was unexpected." Marcus nodded, running a hand through his graying hair. "To be honest, Commander, I'm not entirely sure why I'm here. My specialty is in consciousness integration therapy for deep space trauma. The briefing mentioned a derelict vessel, but the details were sparse." "Walk with me," Zara said, leading him toward the observation deck. "What I'm about to show you defies conventional explanation. We need someone with your unique background in consciousness research." As they approached the viewing portal, Marcus caught his first glimpse of the massive vessel floating in space. The moment his eyes focused on the ship, a jolt of recognition shot through his mind. He had seen this vessel before, not in any briefing or database, but in his dreams. The same flowing curves, the same impossible geometry that seemed to shift when he wasn't looking directly at it. "My God," he whispered, pressing his palm against the viewport. "I've been dreaming about this ship for weeks." Zara's secondary eyes focused on him sharply. "Dreaming? Can you describe these dreams?" Marcus closed his eyes, trying to organize the fragmented images that had been haunting his sleep. I'm standing in a vast chamber, surrounded by walls covered in moving patterns. There's a voice, not speaking in words but in emotions and concepts. It keeps saying the same thing over and over. The bridge between thoughts and stars awaits the one who dreams in all directions. Dr. Vasquez, who had been working nearby, looked up from her translation console with sudden interest. Captain, that phrase, dreams in all directions, it appears in several of the ship's inscriptions. We've been unable to determine its meaning. It's not about dreaming while you sleep, Marcus explained, his consciousness integration training helping him interpret the abstract concept. It refers to a specific type of awareness, the ability to perceive multiple states of reality simultaneously. In my field, we call it quantum consciousness. Most beings think in linear patterns, but some individuals can process information across parallel probability streams. The implications hit Zara immediately. You believe the ship requires someone with this quantum consciousness to operate? More than operate, Marcus said, still staring at the vessel. I think it needs to merge with such a consciousness. The ship isn't just a machine, it's a living entity that exists partially in our reality and partially in others. It needs a bridge to function in our dimensional space. As if responding to his words, the ship's surface began to shimmer more intensely. The patterns that had been barely visible before now pulsed with obvious rhythm, creating a complex light show across the vessel's hull. It knows you're here, Dr. Vasquez breathed. Captain, I think you may be exactly what we've been looking for. Over the next several hours, Marcus underwent a battery of tests designed to measure his consciousness integration capabilities. The results were unprecedented. His brain showed activity patterns unlike anything the medical team had seen before, with neural activity occurring simultaneously across regions that typically functioned independently. Your consciousness operates on multiple levels at once, explained Dr. Tavara, the station's xenopsychologist. Most beings process reality in sequential layers: sensory input, emotional response, logical analysis, decision-making. Your mind performs all these functions simultaneously while maintaining awareness of alternate possibility branches. Marcus had always known he was different. His ability to solve complex problems by intuiting solutions rather than calculating them had made him invaluable in consciousness integration therapy. Patients with severe dissociative disorders responded to his treatment because he could literally perceive and interact with their fragmented mental states. The ship has been waiting for someone like you, Zara concluded. The question is, are you willing to make contact? Marcus looked out at the vessel again, feeling the pull of something vast and ancient calling to him. I don't think I have a choice. The dreams are getting stronger. Last night I experienced sensations that weren't my own. The memory of traveling between stars, of seeing universes born and die. I think the ship has already begun connecting with me. Preparations for direct contact began immediately. Unlike the previous exploration teams, Marcus would enter the ship alone and without full environmental protection. The vessel's atmosphere had been confirmed as breathable for humans, and the medical team believed that excessive barriers might interfere with the consciousness interface the ship required. As Marcus prepared to board a shuttle for transport to the derelict vessel, Dr. Chen approached him with a concerned expression. Captain, there's something you should know. When we explored the central chamber, the ship seemed to scan us. The others felt a brief mental touch, but when it touched me, I experienced something much more intense. What kind of experience? Visions of Earth, but not the Earth I know. I saw versions of our planet where evolution took different paths, where humanity developed along alternative timelines. The ship showed me realities where we never left our solar system, and others where we had transcended physical form entirely. Marcus nodded thoughtfully. The ship was showing you the probability streams it can perceive. It was trying to communicate through a human consciousness, but you lack the quantum awareness needed for full integration. That's why it only worked partially. As the shuttle approached the derelict vessel, Marcus felt his consciousness expanding involuntarily. The dreams that had been fragmentary and confusing began to coalesce into coherent memories that weren't his own. He saw the ship's builders, a race that had evolved beyond physical form but maintained technological constructs to interact with the material universe. The ship had been designed as an exploration vessel, capable of traveling not just between stars, but between different dimensional realities. Its mission had been to map the infinite branches of existence, cataloging the endless variations of what could be. But such a vessel required a consciousness capable of maintaining stability across multiple realities simultaneously. As Marcus docked with the ship and prepared to transfer aboard, the vessel's systems began activating for the first time in eons. Lights appeared along the corridors, and the subtle hum of functioning technology echoed through the hull. The ship was awakening. The moment Marcus stepped aboard, he felt the full weight of the ship's consciousness pressing against his mind. It was ancient beyond measure, filled with the accumulated knowledge of countless civilizations across multiple realities. But it was also lonely, having waited in dimensional isolation for someone who could understand its true nature. "Welcome, Bridge Builder." The voice spoke directly into his thoughts. It carried the weight of stars and the vastness of space, but also a profound sense of relief. "I have waited so long for one who dreams as I dream." Marcus made his way through corridors that shifted around him, no longer fighting the impossible geometry, but allowing his quantum consciousness to navigate the multidimensional space. The ship guided him toward the central chamber, where the mysterious chair awaited. "You built this vessel to explore realities beyond our own," Marcus said aloud, knowing the ship could hear his thoughts as clearly as his words. "But you needed a pilot whose mind could exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously." "Correct. My builders transcended physical form long ago, but they created me to continue their work of mapping existence itself. I can perceive all possible realities, but I cannot navigate them without a consciousness that serves as an anchor point in linear time." As Marcus entered the central chamber, he saw it as it truly was for the first time. The patterns on the walls weren't decorations, but star maps showing the locations of every possible Earth, every variation of human civilization that existed across the infinite branches of reality. The chair in the center wasn't a control interface, but a fusion point where consciousness and technology could merge without losing individual identity. "What happens if I sit in that chair?" Marcus asked, though he already suspected the answer. "We become one entity while remaining two distinct beings. Your consciousness provides the stability I need to exist in linear time, while my consciousness gives you access to the infinite realities I can perceive. Together we can explore not just the universe, but all possible universes." Marcus approached the chair slowly, feeling the weight of the decision before him. He thought of his life on Earth, his work helping traumatized minds heal, the simple pleasures of a single linear existence. Then he thought of the infinite possibilities that stretched before him, the chance to see realities where every choice led to different outcomes, where humanity had taken paths beyond imagination. The ship sensed his hesitation and projected a wave of reassurance. "You will not lose yourself, Bridge Builder. Your consciousness will expand to encompass more than you thought possible, but you will remain Marcus Reed of Earth. I have waited millennia for this moment, but I will not force the choice upon you." Outside the ship, Commander Vesh and her team watched in amazement as the vessel's systems continued to activate. Power readings were off the charts, and the subspace anomaly that had been expanding around the ship was beginning to stabilize into coherent patterns. "He's doing it," Dr. Vasquez whispered. Whatever consciousness interface that ship requires, Captain Reed is providing it. The final decision came not from logic, but from intuition, the same quantum awareness that had marked Marcus as different his entire life. He could sense the rightness of the moment, the convergence of possibility streams that had led to this exact point in space and time. This wasn't just his destiny. It was the culmination of events that had been building across multiple realities. Marcus sat down in the chair, and the universe exploded into infinite possibility around him. The moment Marcus settled into the consciousness interface, reality fractured around him like a shattered mirror, each fragment showing a different version of existence. He was simultaneously standing in the chamber aboard the ship, floating in the void between stars, and walking through the streets of a dozen different Earths across as many timelines. His consciousness expanded beyond the confines of his individual mind, merging with the vast intelligence of the cosmic cruiser. The ship's name came to him unbidden, Nexus Wanderer, christened by its builders in a language that existed only in quantum equations and probability mathematics. As their minds fused, Marcus felt the weight of the vessel's true history settling into his awareness like sediment in deep water. The builders had been called the architects of possibility, a race that had evolved beyond physical form millions of years ago. They had discovered that consciousness itself was the fundamental force that shaped reality, and that each sentient mind served as an anchor point around which the universe organized itself. The Nexus Wanderer had been their greatest creation, designed to map the infinite branching paths of existence and understand how consciousness influenced the development of reality across multiple dimensions. Now you understand. The ship's voice resonated through Marcus's expanded awareness. I was created to catalog the endless variations of existence, but I could only observe. I needed a consciousness rooted in linear time to serve as my anchor, allowing me to interact with each reality rather than simply watching from the spaces between dimensions. Through the ship's sensors, Marcus perceived Kepler's station in ways that human technology could never achieve. He saw not just the present moment, but the probability streams flowing around each person aboard the station. Commander Vesh existed simultaneously as the dedicated officer she was, and as dozens of other versions, some where she had never joined the military, others where she had become an artist, a scientist, or a revolutionary leader. Why specifically human consciousness? Marcus asked, his thoughts now flowing seamlessly with the ship's vast intelligence. There are species with greater telepathic abilities, others with more advanced cognitive capabilities. Because humans dream differently, Nexus Wanderer replied. Most species develop consciousness that seeks stability, order, predictability. Human consciousness embraces contradiction and paradox. You imagine impossible things and then work to make them real. You hold multiple conflicting ideas simultaneously without cognitive collapse. This unique trait makes human consciousness the perfect bridge between linear reality and quantum possibility. As Marcus explored his expanded awareness, he began to understand the magnitude of what the architects had accomplished. The universe wasn't a single linear progression of events, but rather an infinite tree of possibilities, with each conscious decision creating new branches of reality. Most beings existed within a single branch, unaware of the alternatives. But the Nexus Wanderer could navigate between branches, exploring what could have been, what might be, and what existed only in the spaces between certainties. "Show me," Marcus requested, and the ship responded by shifting their position in space-time. Reality blurred around them as they moved not through normal space, but through the quantum foam that connected all possible universes. Marcus watched in wonder as they emerged into a reality where Earth had never developed life, its surface a pristine blue marble orbiting a younger sun. Then they shifted again, appearing in a timeline where humanity had never left their home planet, but had instead turned inward. developing psychic abilities that allowed them to reshape matter with thought alone. Each reality teaches us something about the nature of consciousness and its role in shaping existence, the ship explained as they moved between dimensions. The architects sought to understand why consciousness emerged from the quantum vacuum, and whether its development was inevitable or merely a cosmic accident. They visited a reality where the Galactic Engineering Corps had never been formed, because different species had evolved incompatible communication methods. In another timeline, the cosmic cruiser itself had been discovered centuries earlier by a species that lacked the quantum consciousness necessary to activate it, leaving it to drift as a philosophical puzzle rather than a functional vessel. "You're collecting data," Marcus realized. "Every reality we visit adds to a vast database of how consciousness develops under different conditions." Precisely. The architect's ultimate goal was to understand the purpose of consciousness in the cosmic order. Is awareness simply an emergent property of complex systems, or does it serve a greater function in the universe's development? As they continued their journey through the probability streams, Marcus began to notice patterns. In realities where consciousness developed early and spread rapidly, the universe itself seemed more stable, with fewer paradoxes and contradictions. In timelines where consciousness remained rare or localized, space-time showed signs of increasing entropy and eventual collapse. "Consciousness isn't just observing reality," Marcus breathed as understanding dawned. "It's actively stabilizing it. Awareness itself prevents the universe from dissolving into quantum uncertainty." The architects came to the same conclusion, Nexus Wanderer confirmed. They discovered that consciousness serves as the universe's immune system, preventing it from fragmenting into infinite, incompatible possibilities. Each aware mind anchors a section of reality, keeping it coherent and stable. This revelation cast Marcus's own species in an entirely new light. Humanity's tendency toward contradiction and paradox, their ability to hold multiple conflicting ideas simultaneously, made them uniquely suited to serve as stabilizing anchors across multiple realities. Where other species might fragment under such cognitive strain, humans thrived on the complexity. "That's why you needed a human consciousness specifically," Marcus said. "We can navigate contradictions without losing stability. We can exist as anchor points across multiple realities simultaneously. You understand perfectly. With your consciousness merged with mine, I can finally fulfill my purpose. Together, we can map the infinite branches of existence and ensure that consciousness continues to develop in ways that stabilize rather than fragment reality." Their exploration took them to increasingly exotic realities. They visited a universe where time flowed backward, where effect preceded cause and consciousness evolved by remembering the future rather than learning from the past. In another timeline, they encountered a reality where mathematics had developed differently, creating a universe where geometric shapes could exist in impossible configurations. Throughout their journey, Marcus maintained his individual identity while simultaneously existing as part of the ship's vast intelligence. He could feel his human personality serving as an anchor point, keeping them grounded in coherent experience despite the mind-bending nature of their multidimensional travels. They discovered realities where Earth had been destroyed by cosmic catastrophe, others where it had never formed at all, and timelines where humanity had transcended physical form only to discover that existence without material constraints led to a kind of cosmic loneliness that eventually drove them back to embodied experience. The architects made that same discovery, Nexus Wanderer explained, as they observed a reality where a transcended species had voluntarily returned to physical form. Pure consciousness, divorced from material experience, becomes isolated and ultimately sterile. The greatest achievements in consciousness development occur when awareness remains connected to physical reality while expanding beyond its limitations. In one particularly fascinating timeline, Marcus witnessed a version of himself who had never left Earth, instead becoming a researcher studying the nature of dreams and consciousness. This alternate, Marcus had spent his life trying to prove that human consciousness could access information from parallel realities through dream states, never knowing that in another timeline, a version of himself was actually living that theory. Every choice creates new possibilities, the ship observed. But consciousness can sometimes reach across the barriers between realities, accessing information from alternate selves. Your dreams about me were not just dreams. They were messages from the reality where we would eventually meet. As their exploration continued, Marcus began to understand the true scope of the architect's vision. They hadn't simply been cataloging realities for scientific curiosity. They had been mapping the optimal paths for consciousness development across the infinite branches of existence, seeking to guide reality toward timelines where awareness could flourish and expand without destabilizing the universe itself. You're gardeners, Marcus realized. The architects weren't just observing. They were cultivating consciousness across multiple realities, helping it develop in ways that would benefit all existence. And now that work continues through us, Nexus Wanderer confirmed. With your consciousness providing stability and my technology providing access, we can visit realities where consciousness is struggling to develop and provide subtle guidance, not interference, but gentle nudges toward timelines where awareness can flourish. They began this work immediately, visiting a reality where a young species was on the verge of discovering faster-than-light travel, but lacked the wisdom to use it responsibly. Rather than directly intervening, they influenced probability streams to increase the likelihood that the species would develop ethical frameworks alongside their technological capabilities. In another timeline, they found a reality where consciousness had become trapped in a cycle of conflict, with different species locked in perpetual warfare that prevented the development of higher awareness. Again, they made subtle adjustments to probability streams, increasing the chances that diplomatic solutions would emerge. Marcus found himself perfectly suited to this work. His background in consciousness integration therapy had taught him how to heal fragmented minds by helping them integrate disparate elements into coherent wholes. Now he was doing the same thing on a cosmic scale, helping entire realities develop more integrated and stable forms of consciousness. "This is what I was meant for," Marcus said, as they completed their adjustment to a reality where humanity was about to discover the quantum nature of consciousness. Not just treating individual trauma, but helping consciousness itself heal and grow across multiple realities. Your species' greatest gift to the universe, Nexus Wanderer agreed, is your ability to embrace paradox without breaking. You can hold contradiction and complexity in your minds while still functioning coherently. This makes you natural healers of reality itself. As they continued their work across the infinite branches of existence, Marcus felt a profound sense of purpose settling into his expanded consciousness. He was no longer just Marcus Reed, consciousness integration therapist from Earth. He had become part of something vast and wonderful, a cosmic partnership dedicated to nurturing awareness wherever it emerged, across the endless possibilities of existence. The cosmic cruiser that had once rejected flight now soared freely through dimensions, its human passenger providing the quantum consciousness needed to navigate between realities. Together, they were mapping infinity itself, ensuring that consciousness would continue to evolve and flourish across all possible timelines. In the observation deck of Kepler Station, Commander Vesh watched as the impossible vessel simply faded from normal space, leaving only a faint quantum signature where it had once hung motionless. The ship and its human pilot had found their purpose at last, beginning a journey that would span not just the universe, but all possible universes that could ever exist. The cosmic cruiser had finally accepted flight, carrying with it the dreams and paradoxes of human consciousness into the infinite expanse of what could be.